Well, Insiduani, your time has come. We have moved on from the host shelling corner. Please, he's told us ahead of time. He has 8 full pages of notes, single-spaced 12-point font Times New Roman, a lot of which is annotated.
7 of them were supposed to be me just talking about how much you should play with my character.
About the Masquerade and its organization and the way it's progressed. And, and the lessons learned. So
who cares about that thing?
This is already starting off kind of slow, so I don't know if we can get through all 8 pages, but please give your thoughts on the matter and what we can expect going forward and all that good stuff. Take it away.
All right. So
after I told you to go fuck yourself 5 times.
Well, I'll remember that for later. It's a little surprise to me. So once again, I was the lead organizer responsible for a lot of the planning for the Masquerade. And I was assisted by all the dev mods and the mask who helped with the team crafting, troubleshooting, and management. Funnily enough, Nord is actually indirectly responsible for me starting to organize the Masquerade. I think about 6 months ago, we were sitting in VC watching some people argue about Masquerade stuff. And he made a joke about organizing a new one. And I took it seriously and I offered to do the majority of the organizational work if he would be like the face of it. He made the very, very reasonable response of reminding me how much work would actually have to go into it. And I, in my endless megalomania, decided to get a bit snippy with him. Obviously, we held hands and made up after that. But I felt like I wanted to stick to my word. And now, 6 months later, here we are at the end of the 2024 Masquerade. I've got a lot to say about it, but I'll try to go over all teams, all 12 of them, as briefly as possible for the sake of time. So, starting off with the first team, Team High Hopes, we have Chiaki. This is one of 2 rework teams in the entire Masquerade. During organization, before we even started sorting the applications, Cobrad actually made a huge spreadsheet of every single possible rework character. And the only 2 that were actually possible were Chiaki and Mulan. So we took those 2 and we used them. Well, we formed them first, and then we made all the other teams after the fact. So, in a way, at the heart of this, it was still a rework Masquerade. But anyways, on to Team Chiaki itself. Overall, the team performed very well. I think it was definitely not ideally organized. By the fact that we only have 1 artist and everyone else is a writer. But Horsecat absolutely knocked it out of the park. He got the model done in, I think, 2 weeks. And then he just spent the rest of it posing. On his own. Absolutely insane. Everybody else did well as well. Nicole, especially. Oh, right. I forgot to tell you who's on the teams. The Team Chiaki consisted of Horsecat, Nicole, Ace, Polo Shrimp, and Movie Kit Kit. Nicole definitely took up a leadership position very, very early on. She was consistently active. She was the one driving most of the conversations, and she also helped organize everything within the team. I think without her, the team would have likely failed without the direction and organization she provided. And now there is a bit of discourse on the creative decision to make Chiaki chubby instead of slim like in her source. But I believe Horsecat is working on a solution to that, and he should be finished with it soon. And once that's done, I believe she'll be fully on testing, and ready to return to the main roster after some work. Overall, very strong performance. And they also worked very well under pressure as the first team to reveal during the midpoint reveals. Next is Team Real Men working on Mulan. Unfortunately, this team did not perform quite as strongly as Team High Hopes. They were the second viable rework team, and it consisted of Spaceman, My Mans, Sonic Joey, Cool Dude Guy, and Wooter. During organization, we actually joked about calling them Team Man due to the names of two of the developers and also the project focus. Admittedly, we did overload their team with artists. Spaceman, Sonic Joey, and Cool Dude Guy were all artists, with only My Mans and Wooter being writers. As with High Hopes, we kind of hoped that them being a rework team would give them a bit of leeway with having some things incomplete, because even if they can't remake something entirely, they can still add on top of it or use older parts to patch in holes. Though what actually ended up happening was Spaceman had to leave the Masquerade during the beginning months due to personal circumstances, leaving My Mans alone to manage the newbies. And it was a lot for him. The organizers did step in to try and help, but it was a bit too little too late. And efficiency slowed down a lot as a result. On a positive note, though, Cool Dude Guy is very good at KKL. Everybody on that team is. There's a lot of strong artists there. And I think with some more concrete leadership and organization, they could have all combined their powers to make something really incredible. Unfortunately, that's not how it worked out. And I'm going to strive to do better next Masquerade. Next on the list is Team Silver working on Lyra. This team consisted of Cody, Bluecoin, Tweetsy, Rain, Nano Vataver, Zork James, and Jeff the Slightly Lewd. It's a lot of people there. I think Pokemon was sort of an inevitability for a team, considering how popular it is. It's sort of like Fire Emblem, but with animals instead of soldiers. I will admit, despite how many people were on it, the organization of this team was a bit weak because we were pressed for options, but we did try our best. Performance-wise, Cody absolutely soldiered through all the art alone, which was incredibly impressive. By the end of the event, he was just finishing up the posing. Unfortunately, the writing is sort of where things fell apart. And a lot of the people on the team decided on Lyra because they believed it was a common character interest. But it turns out a lot of people just didn't know her very well. Because of that, writing ended up slowing down a ton. And since Bluecoin, the veteran of the team, didn't know what Lyra was like, he wasn't able to take an effective leadership position to get everyone in order. There was undoubtedly a large amount of passion in the team, but without direction, it just sort of fell apart. It's really unfortunate, but it's also given us a lot more ideas for how to avoid this kind of scenario in the future. Next up, Team Raisin. Team Raisin News, yes. Sorry. So this team consisted of Faraway Vision, Q-Scan, KFC, Chris 9000, and Yuricom. This was the state-mandated Touhou team that Solitaire our benevolent and merciful head of personnel required from me before he give me the thumbs up to go ahead with the masquerade. Hi, Solitaire. I just want you to know you don't need to splice my words into something incriminating. I promise I'll say something insane and controversial on my own time to spare you the editing work. In actuality, though, we organized this team because Liz wanted it. And since he has some trouble making time for development, we thought it'd make any of his contributions a lot easier. So yeah, to everyone who said my team was a result of organizer abuse, this is the actual mod abuse team. Unfortunately, despite how stacked this team was, it just sort of fell victim to super duper bad luck. Liz and Q-Scan, the two veterans, actually ended up disappearing without a trace a few weeks in. That was kind of it for the team, despite how much time was left. The remaining newcomers worked really hard for the remainder of the event, but without either of the veterans, communication and direction just couldn't really happen. It sucks, but fate just decided no. I also feel really bad about all the other people on the Touhou team. KFC, Chris, and Unicorn, they all worked really hard, and it probably sucked to have the people supposed to guide you through leave you alone to drudge through 2 months of work. Unfortunately, in an organization, we can't really do much to account for veterans leaving because there just aren't enough people to cover every base. But even this was unprecedented. And I'm really hoping that if there is a next Masquerade, this sort of circumstance can be avoided. Or if it does happen, we can find at least some solution. I know that sometimes you just can't do anything, but it still sucks. I want people to enjoy the event and, despite the hardship, still manage to make something out of it. But moving on, next we have Team Guilty Love working on Emma Skye. So this team consisted of Magician, If I May, Fine Fellow, and The King, plus Nord. This team also had some trouble because, like Team Silver, it was because they didn't all unanimously agree on one character. I think only the newbies and Magician really knew her. And as a result, both sides hit a lot of hitches. But I think they eventually, well, right now they're pulling through pretty well. Even if it's a bit slow and a bit grueling, they're still making the effort and it's paying off. Nord also volunteered to help finish the posing. And hopefully with his support, they'll make it over the finish line. I think despite it all, they should make it. Even if it takes a bit longer than usual, I still believe in them. Do you have any thoughts, Nord? You're helping them out with posing.
Yeah. The main hurdle with getting the posing done is that Magician's models are very detailed, to the extent where Kisuke a bit struggles to keep up when you're trying to do any sort of poses, and they're not familiar with posing in general. So, just like last Masquerade, I'm lending help to the Ace Attorney team, who are maybe struggling a little bit. It's currently a bit of a catch-22 of motivation is low without poses, but poses may not get done if there isn't writing there for it. So what I'm doing is I'm just chipping in to get her basic poses done for all stages, and If I May is definitely a champion for pushing through and trying to get her writing done. So hopefully the project will pull through in the end.
Time's a flat circle, huh? But thank you for helping out the team, and good work to both you and everybody on it for pulling through. Next up, we have the one, the only, the prodigal son himself, Zagreus. Working on him are Zeus, Cinda, Jules, Clockwork Voyeur, and Grape Ghost. This team was definitely a bit of a curveball for everybody, but I am very, very glad that it was even possible to organize. We did admittedly stack a ton of experienced people on this team, but I don't really regret that. And I don't think anybody else does either. The end result, or at least the pre-end result, looks super good. And I just want them to succeed and have the highest odds of it. Unfortunately, during development, there were the incidents that just absolutely wrecked the work they had. But they've done a very admirable job of bouncing back, just like Zagreus. Zeus's work is always just a joy to see. And with two very strong writers behind it, I'm very excited for what they will finally release to the testing roster and hopefully eventually me. Next up, we have, I believe this is a favorite of the podcast, actually. We have the team working on Karin Saar, aka, I probably shouldn't yell, especially the name of this. Spnanon, can you yell it for me?
I don't get it.
He's pulling his cock out!
Whatever, just keep going.
Oh, okay. We have on this team working on Karin Saar, Blue Jay, Vermelia, Death Respects, and of course me. We did have a newbie, but they didn't show up, unfortunately. So it's just us veteran devs. Honestly, there's not a lot to say here unless I want to spend 5 minutes teasing my teammates or something. We were all very efficient. We all knew what to do and what we wanted. Blue Jay and I ended up passing the model back and forth, adding huge chunks to it. I ended up making the hair, jacket, and all the shading, and she made almost everything else. Posing took a bit longer, but Blue Jay managed to close it out. Rem also wrote mountains of lines, so we did need to remind her to spread them out to other cases. Death Respects also added a lot, but they were finishing up some school stuff, so they couldn't be there for the whole thing. Unfortunately, I was busy with organizer stuff, so I couldn't give my full attention to the project. Near the very end, I got super sick, and now I'm in Hong Kong. But thankfully, everyone else did a great job from day one, and they're doing just as good as one covering for me while I'm away. Final message for the team. Play Karin when she comes out. She's like Leon Kennedy and Frank West had a baby before abandoning an inactive war zone. Very snarky. Would step on you. 10 out of 10 can recommend. Now, on to team working on Wiz from Konosuba. On this team were Halo, F.E. Freak, Soulheart, Pandora Hall, Sebastian, and Cool Cat. I think this team did have a bit of a rickety start and middle, but they should be clear to reach the end. The model is obviously very well made and posed by the two present artists. The writing, on the other hand, did have some hurdles. We added Cool Cat in after the start of the Masquerade as emergency writing support on a mistake, but unfortunately, I don't think he was very present for the event, probably due to personal circumstances. The team also lacked a veteran writer, which meant the newbies didn't have a ton of direction and ended up feeling lost, which cut into efficiency. But despite all that, they're still chugging along, and hopefully we'll have another Konosuba character up on testing soon. I believe Darkness actually returned recently. So, maybe she'll get a table mate. Next, there is the mandatory Fire Emblem team, Team Sunshower, working on Constance. On this team, we have Andro, Namath, Pikachu for President, Jason, and High C. This team was mainly urged into existence by Namath and also me in an attempt to force Andro to make good on its threat to make a Fire Emblem character. The model is actually an older one made by Blue Jay, slightly refurbished and posed by Ombro. Honestly, I don't really have a lot to say about this team, which is both a good and a bad thing. They just sort of got everything done. There wasn't really any drama. Pikachu for President did deal with some writing jitters throughout it, but he did pull through and contributed a nice chunk of line. Jason and Mass both also buckled down and wrote a ton too. And Onbro is close to finishing up all the art stuff. Still a little bit more work to do, but they should easily reach testing soon. Next up, we have Team Hammerspace working on Momo from My Hero Academia. And on this team, we have Phonebox, Carbol, Unknown, and Nibur Sajor. Overall, they were a very, very solid team, and they performed incredibly well throughout the event. Carbol did disappear for the first month, but he came back and got right to work. Phonebox was very clearly the one in charge. He took a leadership position super early on and started coaching everybody. The newbies, they all just followed his lead, and it was excellent. He wrote out a huge character benchmark as well as an outline. Never Sajura, the newbie, also did their best, and they wrote a lot of lines. They also were constantly talking, very upbeat, very good for morale. And Unknown helped. There was a bit of a scare when Carbol disappeared, but once he came back, things went pretty well from then on. I believe she actually went up on the testing roster earlier today because we didn't have many other submissions to go in her batch. By the time this episode comes out, likely everybody who's going to make it will have made it. But be sure to play her. Next, we have a bit of a miracle case. Team Welcome to Die working on Heisenberg from Resident Evil Village. The only people on this team were Rahabim, Palpol, and Storm, a 3-person team. Yeah, like I said, it was a miracle. It was a bit of a miracle. There was only 3 people and no super experienced veterans, but they still managed to pull through with one of the most impressive models coming out of this Masquerade. I just want to stress again that it's incredible. I think the fact everyone consistently communicated, kept a strong schedule, and worked to plan stuff together, all of that made this possible. It's always really nice to get another male character on the roster, and I think Heisenberg will be a great addition once he's finished an army. Because right now, he does have a lot of placeholders, but despite that, he still feels very close to the verge of being done. Last and not least, we have Team Denim Jones and the Bright Yellow Experience working on Jean Gunhilder from Genshin Impact. On this team, we have Cavendish, Alias, Cyrus the Fool, and Just Kidding. This team, it was originally a Ruby team because, funnily enough, the Genshin team just wasn't a possible team to organize without messing up everything else. During the setup of the Masquerade, I traded a few jabs with Cavendish, and I joked about making 0 Genshin teams just to spite him. But this wasn't even a case of spite. This was just a Genshin team being logically inefficient and a detriment to the rest of the Masquerade. But despite that, they still convinced all of their team to work on Jean Gunhilder instead of a character from Ruby. He even had a little fake out during the reveals where they pretended to work on Yang Xiaolong, despite her not being a viable rework option. But despite my personal vendetta against Genshin Impact, they performed very well. Alias and Just Kidding, they were both very experienced, very efficient, and with them on the team, it wasn't really much of a struggle to get her testing ready. Cavendish as well provided a huge amount of lines, and Cyrus, despite being a newbie, gave a very, very strong effort right beside him. I believe they're working on a lot more Barbara and Jean interactions. So that's something to look forward to if you're a fan of those. And with that, I believe that is all 12 of the Masquerade teams gone over briefly. Do either of you have any comments?
I have a note passed along from Cavendish here to ask you, which character would you say is the winner of the Masquerade, and why is it Jean?
Thank you for that detailed breakdown, Insiduani. I'd like to say that we're going to cover each of these characters more in depth with a similar sort of introduction for each of them, and hopefully some of the relevant and mentioned devs in the coming episodes. So you can look forward to that. I know not all of them are going to make it across the finish line. So for some, this is their last will and testament. Basically, this is as far as they're ever going to get. But as of the moment of this recording, I'm sure you mentioned, but Chiaki, Heisenberg, Jean, and now Momo are the four that have actually made it to testing. And we have those on the agenda for the future. But we will talk about those and probably some others in future episodes. So look forward to that.